Hi, Adam Taxin here in Hollywood, Florida, with Rabbi Joseph Isaac Korf of Chabad of Hollywood, Florida, not California. We're talking today about President Trump, who's been president for 16 days, and Rabbi Korf, who is the director of Chabad of Hollywood, is very outspoken, though it doesn't necessarily represent the views of Chabad of Hollywood, but you're very outspoken on your Facebook page.
I'm outspoken on my Facebook page only, and I want to make this clear, only as a private citizen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to influence people. I don't, in a political way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to, in any way, promulgate the Chabad, principles or what they believe, and I don't know for sure what the Chabad as a whole believes.
Right.
When I comment on anything on Facebook, it's merely as a private citizen, as a person with, with feelings.
But you should friend him. That's the point.
Yeah.
Joseph Isaac Korf, Korf. We got the disclaimer.
Right.
That's all. You did well with that right there.
Well, I just want to make sure that whatever I comment on Facebook is personal. I am not a robot, and I have feelings and personal opinions, and that's all I do. Right. When I talk as the Rabbi you mentioned now, Chabad of Hollywood, I don't talk about politics per se, or what my opinions are politically, but more existential issues that I feel are existential. They're Torah related and Jewish related, and how it affects or impacts the Jewish community.
And I think that's a pretty good disclaimer, but he will talk politics more than just about any Chabad rabbi I've seen. We met randomly less than a week ago at a pizza place. Mizrahi's here in Hollywood, Florida.
By divine providence.
Yeah, I was hungry. But it was good. Actually, I had eggplant rollatini. Put an advertisement in for that. So we're going to talk Trump. I'm going to come back and get up. I just have the camera on a tripod, so I'm going to make sure, starting now, in case there's a sound issue, I'm just going to make sure that everything is fine as we draw people. And if you have questions and comments, I will get up every few minutes and read them. And but now we're going to talk about Trump and Israel 16 days into the Trump presidency. Rabbi Korf, turn it over to you. I'll have questions periodically.
My main, opinion or my main idea about Trump and related to Israel is really one main thing, which makes him, as far as I'm concerned, unique, different than any of the previous presidents that I've ever lived through or understood, both Democrat or Republican. I'm quite frankly upset at the Republican Party too. I'm a registered Democrat, actually. I usually vote Republican. I'm revealing that now.
But this is a Democrat area, so if you want to vote in primaries, who's going to get elected?
It just happens to be that I'm a Democrat, registered Democrat, but I'm usually more obviously of a conservative
Broward
viewpoint.
County, by the way.
Broward County. I'm usually more of a conservative viewpoint than that, viewpoint. But the bottom line is, from any president that I've seen before, what I believe to be the closest connection of any president to Israel, to the Jewish people. Contrary to a lot of the fake news you read about or see in today's news, I've never seen somebody like Donald Trump. And there are many reasons for it. Perhaps we'll discuss it. Maybe you would like to ask me, and I'll be happy to answer what my reasons are. But that's the basic viewpoint, principle that I have. To me, and I've said this quite a few times, my issues, even when I comment on Facebook, are first and foremost existential issues. And how Donald Trump and his ideas, his principles, his political viewpoints are going to affect Israel and the Jewish people. And that's first and foremost for me. I have to be honest. I'm a Jew. I care about my people. I care about Israel. And I want to make sure we're going to be safe. And I want to make sure we're not going to be under threat. And I believe Donald Trump is the person for that. And that's my starting point. Everything else to me is secondary. And part of being a safe Jew who's safe in America is that America should be safe. And that America should be free of any threats. So that all plays a part in it, but it's always starting from this one main issue, and that is safety for protection, defense for Israel and for the Jewish people. Everything else is, to me, beside the point. It's political. This is not. And so, as a result of that, I always felt, to be honest with you, Donald Trump was not my first choice. I've made that clear as well way back. I had a different candidate I was rooting for.
Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, sure, I can say. I don't mind saying.
Was it Rubio?
No.
Oh, you're a Democrat. That's right.
No.
You
But
can
no.
vote in the
But
Republican Party.
But after the how do you call it, even though during the primaries I couldn't vote for a Republican, I was rooting for somebody, and I was
Cruz.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't trust Rubio as much, although Rubio is a great friend of Israel too.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt Cruz had more spine, and I could trust him more. That didn't happen. My next choice was obviously Donald Trump. When you compare Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, there's not even a contest. It's not political to me. If Hillary Clinton was somebody I could trust that would be there for Israel and for the Jewish people as a whole, it wouldn't be a question to me then either. But that's not there. And so therefore, that has to be my choice. Now, I want to make one very important...
Before you do that, we may have picked up more people. You're welcome to comment. I am going to periodically walk around and check the comments, and I will try to integrate the good ones or even worthwhile ones and questions you may have for the rabbi. Please go on.
I want to make, however, one very important... I want to make one caveat. As a religious Jew, as a rabbi, my foundation really for everything is Almighty God. And there's a clear verse in the Torah which says, Leiv melachim v'sarim biyad Hashem. The hearts of kings and princes are in the hands of God. So in truth, everything is divine providence. And whatever any leader of any country, let alone the superpower of the world, does or behaves is really by divine providence. He almost doesn't have a choice to a certain extent.
I have to put in a caveat based on what we read in the last 2 weeks in the Torah, is though Pharaoh went a little above and beyond, and the Egyptians went a little above and beyond and were punished for that.
Correct. But,
maybe you can just
how did it start?
By divine providence.
Divine
Jews
providence.
Had to be slaves.
I mean, how do I say? What happened was there's a famous question about Pharaoh. Pharaoh wasn't given a choice, supposedly. God supposedly wanted him to be stubborn and not let the Jewish people go. Hardened his heart. Then, if that's the case, where was his freedom of choice? Why was he even punished? And one of the answers that is given is because originally he himself didn't want. And he himself went further beyond what he was required. He himself started to be very obstinate. But what happened is, because even when he would perhaps try to give in, maybe, at that point already God said, you know what, you were obstinate from the very beginning. Now I'm not going to let you give in. I'm going to make you even more obstinate. So, in other words, there is a certain aspect of choice, but ultimately it is in God's hand, especially when it comes to a ruler, when it comes to a king, a potentate. They are in the hands of God. And world events, obviously, is decided providentially by divine providence. So that's the first caveat I want to make clear.
Let me just add one thing. I noticed Rabbi Nachum Karinsky, who often talks about Israel from his pulpit at Chabad at the Beaches in Ponte Vedra Beach, is watching. We appreciate your questions and comments in particular. Same with you, Jerry Gerard. I know you're watching, but please comment and ask questions if there's anything you want to add. I will be putting that, and some of you may recognize Rabbi Karinsky from his from Facebook Live on my page, where he's put in. He's been interviewed by Zohar Ben Simon a few times on the last few Torah readings, and also he broadcast the current JLI class. Sorry to interrupt with these little commercials, and Rabbi Karinsky, if you could put in information about that, especially if you're going to be doing, even though I'm not going to be in Northeast Florida for a while, if you're going to be doing it again this Tuesday or Wednesday night. So put that in the comments section, please.
I'm very happy you interrupt with that.
Okay.
I mean, I know Rabbi Karinsky personally, and I hope he has all the success in the world, and he deserves all the success in the world. I don't know if he'll agree with everything I'm saying right now, but he shouldn't take it personally.
If he doesn't, he'll put it in the comments section.
I'm sure he will, but he's a great guy, and he deserves every credit in the world. But just to finish what I wanted to say is that I want to make it clear that ultimately, obviously, the foundation for everything that happens is God's providence. So we're not debating that. It doesn't mean, however, that as a Jew, as a person, as a citizen, that I don't have the right and even the obligation to ensure that we find the natural individual person who seems most likely to be the one to fit that mold. We're not God. We don't know what God wants. We're not prophets. We can only follow what we see, what's there before our eyes. So for that, a Jew has an obligation, to be involved in the matter, in things that are related to this world, to ensure that our fellow Jews are protected, our fellow citizens are protected, and are living under the right circumstances that will give us the greatest success, whether it's for Israel or for America. And to that end, to me, certain issues, again, are not political, they're existential. I even wrote an article about it recently in the blogs of the Times of Israel. So, bottom line is, that's the way I look at it. And so I don't feel that certain issues are political, and that they should be beyond the purview of a rabbi to speak out on. Mm-hmm. And that's why certain things I do speak out about. So,
what would you? How would you evaluate President Trump 16 days into his presidency so far?
Overall,
yeah,
I think there's some mistakes. I've sort of begun to, for a while now, started to get sort of a handle on what he does and why he does it. Mm-hmm. And there are certain advantages to what he's doing. In other words, the quickness and the constant, mm-hmm. This machine gun movement, so mm-hmm. to speak. It makes a lot of sense in some ways. Doesn't give his enemies time to think. Right. Doesn't give them time to settle down and really focus their animosity or opposition. And before he's finished with one thing, or they're finished with one thing, he's already on to the next thing. So that's in one way, it's what we call offense. The best defense is offense.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see about that tonight when we have the number one offense against the number one defense. We'll see. Offense being Atlanta. Right. And by the way, both teams are owned by very charitable Jewish owners.
That's right. Yes.
But Kraft has gone above and beyond. The Patriots, more than any other team, have done good things in
Kraft
Israel.
Also, by the way, has a close but a very nice relationship with Chabad, especially Chabad in the Ukraine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he had any kind of Chabad.
Yeah.
I know about his pro-Israel stuff he does in Israel.
Pro-Israel too. He's given to various Chabads, especially in Dnepropetrovsk, Ukraine.
No idea.
Yeah, I think, considers where is it? I don't know if it's Boston or whatever. I forgot where it is exactly. Considers that a sister city to that city in the Ukraine, and the Chabad Shliach there.
Providence or Boston, I guess.
Could be, and the Chabad Shliach there, Rabbi Kamenetsky, has a personal involvement with him and his previous wife.
I had no idea.
His deceased wife. They've been there. They've given to his he has a very huge Chabad community there. I forgot how it happened, but it happened also by providence, by divine providence.
What do you know about Arthur Blank? I Googled it. I know Bernie Marcus has been, his co-founder, has been incredible for Israel and Jewish stuff, but I just don't know about Arthur Blank and those activities.
I don't know Arthur Blank that much. I don't know if he has a connection with Chabad. Did I read something?
I know the Falcons don't bring players over to Israel every year the way Brady and so many Patriots players do, so you got to root for the Patriots if you're going based on that.
I do know that his former partner Bernie
Marcus
has
been
does have a connection with.
Oh, I know that.
With Chabad downtown in Atlanta. Right. With the shliach there, I think it's Rabbi Schusterman.
Oh yeah, down in Chabad in town. Yeah.
Right. He's a personal friend of his, I'm told.
Oh.
Whether Arthur Blank is that his name?
Yeah.
Is connected with him or not, I don't know.
Yeah. He's not a co-owner of the Falcons, just
no. I know, but I know there is a possibility he may have some connections there also, but I'm not sure. I can't say for sure.
All right, back to the subject.
Yes.
Trump and Israel. Okay, so let's move on to Trump's performance on Israel in particular, whether it's related to the embassy or the recent news the last few days about so-called settlements.
Right.
While I check the comment section.
I'll be honest with you. I've been reading some of these comments about Donald Trump and this announcement on settlements, and right away, you have people, getting on his neck, on his case, taking it out of context. I read what he said, and he never said anything about not building settlements. He said stop announcing it. And I'll be honest with you, it makes a lot of sense. If you want somebody like Donald Trump, who's the president of the United States, to, so to speak, be there for you and have your back, you got to make it less difficult for him. Mm-hmm. When you go out and announce it to the public, sort of like, stick it in the Palestinians' eyes, that makes it only harder for them.
Shut up and do it.
Just shut up and do it.
The way the Bedouins do it in Israel.
Do it. Don't say anything. And the bottom line is, as Trump himself, they said, we don't still have any opinion on it. Right. Just stop announcing it. And the beauty of it? I'm going to tell you something. Many years ago, the Lubavitcher Rebbe once spoke about various things, years ago, about
Can you just explain the connection? There may be some people watching who don't even know about the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Just in case there's somebody who's been living under a rock for the
they're
past...
non-Jews.
who hasn't heard of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is the world Jewish leader who has lived, who, passed away about 25 years ago. And he led, and he's still his spiritual greatness and persona and legacy leads us, the Chabad movement, throughout the world till this very day. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe has been a tremendous influence not only on Jews but on many non-Jews and world leaders. One of his very important things, obviously, that he would speak out on, and publicly, and very emotionally sometimes, was about the safety and the security of the state of Israel. Mm-hmm. Nobody cared more for the security of Israel than the Lubavitcher Rebbe did.
And he was very against giving away land.
Very against giving away even an inch of land. And there are many reasons for it. I don't want to get into all of it.
Not ours to give away.
It's not ours to give away. And there's other various reasons, including halachic Jewish law that forbids a government to give away any part of Israel. Putting that all aside, the Rebbe used to excoriate the Israeli government sometimes for using words and saying things in public that puts them at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. Instead of silently and quietly and diplomatically doing what you have to do. And the Rebbe said, and the Rebbe had connections in both governments, the American and the Israeli government. The Rebbe said many times, America doesn't even want you to do what you say you're going to do. But you put America at a disadvantage by saying you're going to do it, and you're going to give the Palestinians this, and you're going to recognize this, by even saying those things. You put that now in the lexicon, in the diplomatic world, that you're willing to do it. America never asked you to do it. Mm-hmm. They really don't even want you to do it. But because you say you're doing it, or you made it official by pronouncing it, you now put America at a disadvantage, and they have to also now put the pressure on you to do what you promised to do.
And by the way, I'll add that the immediate opponent in the Middle East, the Arab Muslims, don't respect that kind of thing at all. They respect only action.
Very correct. But people don't realize that.
Right.
But listen, if you're going to say that, you say, oh, you're anti-Muslim, you're anti...
No, it's actually showing respect for Muslims by doing that, to know that they don't act like snowflakes.
You want to know who said that and who's so correct?
Who?
Rabbi Meir Kahane.
Mm-hmm.
He would tell the left, the leftists, the people who wanted to give away things. Mm-hmm. He would say to them, "You have no respect for the Muslim Arabs.
Right?
They look at you, they see you as with no spine, and as soon as because they see you with no spine, they have no respect for you, none."
And you assume that they're like that too, which
and
is insulting to them. ISIS has called them out.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah. And you treat them and look down at them and think that because you're going to give them a little this and a little that they're here to compromise with you. Mm-hmm. You don't understand who they are. They have a deep, abiding faith in their religion. They have a deep, abiding faith in their principles. They're not here to compromise with you. And the faster you understand that, the more they will respect you, the more you will respect them like I respect them. Rabbi Kahane said, I respect my Muslim neighbors. That's why they understand and I understand. They understand me, I understand them. We know what we have to do. And showing them weakness is not going to get you anywhere. You have to show them and make clear that Israel is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And the faster they realize that, there is perhaps a way to deal with certain things. What that outcome is, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I believe Trump is a bit like that as well. I'm not going to say he's a Rabbi Kahane by any stretch.
Right. But in terms of the way he dealt with the press, he would double down.
In terms of the way he deals with the press, in terms of the way he deals with other countries, with people, mm-hmm. he is, number one, a man of action. Mm-hmm. He's not a politician, that's for sure. I think everybody can agree on that.
Right.
And he is constantly on the offense. And he does. He's action. I think I once mentioned to you the last time that Judaism really is a religion of action. Hama'asehu ha'ikar. We have forgotten that aspect, the aspect of action. We're always into ideas and this and that, discussions. The action seems to have gone by the wayside. The bottom line is we have to sort of reconnect with that, and we have to get that back and show the world that we are a nation and a faith of action, and that's how we are going to conduct ourselves in a righteous way, and in a way that only brings sanctification to God's name.
So how does that translate into the practical world for those of us who, want to take some action, but we're just over here, somewhere in America?
I don't know exactly how that translates, but I could tell you like this. Living here in America, we tend to forget sometimes what it means to be under constant threat.
Mm-hmm.
So we Jews here in America have it easy, so far, and may it continue to be so. When the time comes that we will start to put ourselves in the shoes of those who live in Israel,
mm-hmm.
start becoming a little more empathetic,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to just simply sympathetic, perhaps then our views of many of the Jewish people today will start to change. And I don't mean only change in the way they view Israel and what Israel needs and how to defend Israel. I mean more than just that. There has to be an underlying sea change by many of our Jewish people here in America who have become comfortable in one political party.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is viewed in that prism. In other words, even if Israel is maybe under threat by a president,
mm-hmm.
or is put at a disadvantage, it doesn't seem to move many of the Jewish people here.
Who are more concerned
Who are
about
more concerned with
the
their
trendy social
party,
issues,
with their politics, with who's going to get elected, with this,
issues.
all these issues. I don't even want to get into one particular
mm-hmm.
issue. There's so many issues that sidetrack Jewish people from the main issue, which is their own existence, which is the existence of their children.
Mm-hmm.
They have to start thinking about that. And to me, that's the only thing I think about. I don't care about all these side issues. These side issues mean nothing to me. You know what? That could be a different discussion for a different time, and we could talk about it in a Torah vantage point, or if there's, everything has a Torah vantage point to
mm-hmm.
it. But we can discuss, but what about ourselves? What about our existence? What about Israel? God forbid, if there was no Israel today. God forbid. Can you even imagine that?
It would definitely embolden the enemies of the Jews.
The
ever.
enemies?
Could you imagine what it
You'd
would
have
be
another
like in
Holocaust,
France?
chas v'shalom.
What would it be like
forbid.
in France immediately?
Who knows where? What?
Yeah.
Imagine when you always know, a Jew always knows, ultimately, he has a homeland. Ultimately, they're still going to accept him even though he lived in America all of his life in comfort.
Mm-hmm.
How can that not be the first principle through which you look at your party, at its leaders, at the way they govern? How can that not be the most important thing to you?
It's almost like...
I can't understand that. To my mind, it doesn't compute. And to my mind, it's not political. And that's the part we really have to sit down, we have to talk about, and not lie, not be mendacious to each other, not falsify the facts.
Well, do you think so much of it is, and you're talking obviously about the Democrat Party, which the majority of Jews belong to, but not necessarily, I would say, the majority of Jews who went to synagogue yesterday, just an ordinary Shabbos, probably support Trump and the Republican Party. The ones who actually went. Well, most of them are Orthodox who went to synagogue yesterday.
I say, but even amongst the Orthodox, you also have personal reasons why this one voted for a Democrat or for this or for that. It doesn't even matter to be the truth is, maybe because, yes, you're right, it happens to be
mm-hmm.
that the Democrat Party today has been taken over by a lot of these radical type...
well, let me continue my thought, though.
Okay.
Is it so much of the support for Israel very closely correlated with how proud is someone to be a Jew and how comfortable... I don't like the word pride because most of us were just born to Jewish mothers. We didn't do anything to become Jewish. But how comfortable are you with being publicly identified as a Jew? And I think there's a lot of overlap with your support for Israel. Leaving aside, obviously... There's tremendous Christian support for Israel out there, and I know some of you are watching, and that's a wholly different matter, but maybe we'll talk about them later. Sorry, I just wanted to make that point and see how you responded.
I'll tell you like this. There is no doubt that what you're saying is true, but will I say that all Jews who are Democrats or liberals or not careful...
I'm not saying all.
Or not careful about their position on Israel to the most extreme,
mm-hmm.
as I feel that I am,
mm-hmm.
will I say that's because they're not proud Jews? No, I think some of them somehow find a way to bifurcate their pride of being Jewish, and still being able to be a supportive of those people in the Democratic Party who are not supportive of Israel. How they manage that and how they attempt to work their heads around it, I'm not sure. I'm actually talking to some of these people, and I try to talk to them and dialogue with them, because I honestly would like to understand that. I can't truly figure that out. Some will say it's because they want to work within, change the party. Because the truth is, once upon a time, Israel was really truly a bipartisan issue. It was supported by bipartisan. Sometimes there was a time maybe even the Republicans were not as supportive as the Democrats.
Harry Truman was a Democrat.
Harry Truman was a Democrat, even though he didn't go along willingly originally, but he did go along to his tremendous merit and credit for all time. And there were Republicans like, James Baker was not a friend of the Jewish people.
Still is not.
Still most
still
probably.
Out there.
I would still say most probably
and
not.
George H.W. Bush.
George H.W. Bush, I can also take it or leave it, So, no doubt. And then on the other hand, George Shultz, who everybody thought would not be a friend, was not a bad friend of Israel, was pretty good. So again, you don't know everybody. Henry Kissinger, my Jewish co-religionist, I wouldn't want to have anything to do with him.
Though they did come through during the Yom Kippur War. He was Secretary of State when
Let me tell you, not that easily, and he caused a lot of problems for Israel. A lot of problems.
I know, but when it really mattered, the Nixon administration was there in the Yom Kippur War.
I don't know if it was
existential.
I don't know if it's Henry Kissinger or maybe it was Nixon, who everybody claims was a big anti-Semite, which I don't agree with, by the way. It's a whole different discussion. But beside that, so this is really not because Democrat, Republican, but what Nebuch, to use the Yiddish word, has happened, and people have to stop being blind to it, is that because the Democrat Party has been taken over by certain radicals or really, really big anti-Semites, quite frankly, and anti-Israel people, and that's become a big part of their party, you gotta think to yourself, am I going to continue to remain in this party? Am I going to fight this party? Am I going to be silent and just follow along and say nothing and keep my head down and don't, let anybody see that I'm, Or am I going to leave it and take a stand? That's the question. You really got to decide. The prophet Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, when he met at that great convocation at Mount Carmel, and he had the faithful Jews on one side, the idolatrous Jews which were really the majority at that time in that part of Israel. On the other side, with the prophets of Baal all standing there at the bottom of the mountain, and Elijah the prophet is himself trying to bring the Jews back to their faith, to their way, to the faith in one God. And he's standing there on the mountain, and they're doing all their sacrifices, and nothing happens. Nothing is being consumed by God, by their gods, as it were. And then finally, Elijah the prophet, after pouring mountains of water, gallons of water all over the place, and a heavenly fire comes down and consumes his sacrifice. Everybody is, What does he say at that time? Does he say to them, fellow Jews, leave these prophets, these false prophets, leave this idolatry. Come follow me and follow the one God and observe his Torah and fulfill his mitzvot. You've seen the great miracle here. Come, follow me. He doesn't say that. He doesn't take the moment at that time to use it as a means to bring people back to the faith.
I forgot what he said.
You know what he said?
No, apparently not.
Right.
I can't remember.
You know what he said? It's a lesson for all time, for everything in life. He said, he says to them, how long will you keep jumping over the threshold? In other words, if you are going to believe in the prophets of Baal, go to the prophets of Baal. If you're going to come believe in me and my God and our God, come to me. But make your choice. Make your stand. In other words, you've got to believe in something. You can't just hide. You can't just say, I don't know for sure, I'm going to stick with this because this is who I was, that's how I grew up. My father was a Democrat, my grandfather was a Democrat. You know what? I have no problem with that if the Democratic Party was supportive of Israel.
Don't try to have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways. In the Old West, if you worked for a rancher and he wanted to drive out the sheep herders.
Right.
And even if he was a killer and he was terrible and everything, if you worked for him, you had to kill with him.
Yeah.
Or you could run away and go defend the sheep herders. But you couldn't sit on the fence.
Right.
If you sat on the
You couldn't
fence...
just have a beer summit as Barack Obama.
Yeah. If you couldn't sit on the fence,
Uh-huh.
if you sat on the fence, you were considered an enemy by both sides.
Right.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
You just made me think of a crazy video I've seen online, which tells people don't try to have it both ways. Of all people, not a friend of the Jews, Al Sharpton.
Yeah.
Google "off the pigs," where he's actually making fun of the people who criticize him for his nonviolent protests. For saying, he said, well, just watch it. I'm telling you, it will illustrate your point. It's actually quite funny, and it's not what you think it's going to be based on the title. But it's Al Sharpton on YouTube, "Off the Pigs." But let me just say something. I'm going to put it out there once more. I don't know how many more minutes we're going to do this. If you have questions, if you have comments, I will integrate them. I'll check them in a minute. But right now, I'd like you to address also the Christian Friends of Israel during a Trump administration. Special thoughts for them, because some of them are watching.
I'll tell you like this. I'm a very big supporter of fundamentalist Christians. Mm-hmm. I've even had some connections with some of them on a periphery level. But I've been a big fan of many of them, big supporter. Mm-hmm. One of my Christian heroes. I almost had somebody who was trying to get me in contact with him. It never worked out in the end, and he is a huge megachurch pastor. He's a big guy physically too. Mm-hmm. But I'm a huge fan of him for various reasons.
Is that the one in Fort Lauderdale?
No,
okay.
He's in Texas.
Okay.
His name is John Hagee.
Oh.
And out of all of them, he is an unbelievable lover of Israel, but not just that. Because many Jews especially will tell you, you can't trust them. Mm-hmm. You know why they love Israel? Not because they love the Jews. It's because they know that if they're going to love Israel. Jesus is supposed to come through a certain gate or whatever. He's going to reveal himself in Israel, and they're all going to have to follow. It's all about Jesus. It's all about getting the Jews.
By the way, if that happens, wouldn't they be right?
No. You see, you're doing it the wrong way.
Right.
You know what my answer to that is?
What is that?
My answer is very simple. Why do I care why they support Israel?
Right.
Has it happened yet? No, right? So meanwhile, let them continue to support Israel and love Jews.
Right.
What will happen in the end? I know what's going to happen.
Right.
I believe what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen, and I know that it's not Jesus, it's Mashiach, who's made of flesh and blood. Now, when that happens, Mashiach is going to be the ruler of the world, and everybody is going to, again, worship God under one shoulder, under one yoke, and Jew and non-Jew will see the one God, Hashem Hamluchat. The world will be the kingdom of God. Everybody will see that. Why do I care what they believe in now? They believe in that. That's fine with me. Let them believe what they believe, as long as they're righteous, as long as they live their lives in a righteous way, and as long as we continue to be friends. That's all I care about. But I care what they think or what I think.
Why worry?
Why worry about
Why worry
that?
about? It's like if we bring it in today. Why worry about what the
That
realm
is
should?
such a foolish complaint and reason not to be friends with Christians. And the reason why I happen to love John Hagee is because I've heard him talk about the greatness of the Jewish people, and the fact that what I've heard, and I think I've heard him say it directly, is that converting Jews, proselytizing Jews, is not their job today. Because he has spoken that a Jew, I'm sure if a Jew wanted to become a Christian, he wouldn't stop him, don't get me wrong. But to go out actively to bring Jews to Christianity, he has maintained, as far as I know, the fact that Jews don't need that. In other words, a non-Jew, in order to get to God, according to Christianity, needs Jesus, the body of Jesus, the dying of Jesus or whatever, to get to God. In other words, non-Jews need an intermediary. They can't get to God without that intermediary. Jews are there already. They've always been there. To them, it is unnecessary. Those are beautiful words. And quite frankly, the reason I really know he's a true friend of Israel, because unlike many other pastors, he is truly involved, not just with Israel. He's involved with Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox communities, yeshivot, shuls, incredible organizations that the ultra-Orthodox Jews are doing in Israel, he has become their best friend. He has found a home there. He knows he ain't getting those ultra-Orthodox Jews to become Christian. So you tell me, what ulterior motive can there be for him to give them so much money? To me, there's only one reason. He honestly believes it. He's true about what he says. And I feel it from him. You know what they say, words that come from the heart enter the heart. I feel his heart. I believe he means it. And a friend like him, and by the way, he's gone out of his way in so many different ways to stand up for Israel. He hasn't stopped. He doesn't stop. To me, listen, he has no need to do that. He has a successful megachurch. He's made millions of books. Why? Why do you want to get involved so much? Why do you make a stand on this so much? Yeah, he does. To me, that's an incredible thing. So, yes, I believe we have to become friends with Christian people, with Christian organizations. We have to work with them for the safety and the protection of Israel. Do I say we have to agree on our religious philosophies? No. As long as they understand that. To me, I have one simple thing. If I meet a Christian, I make it clear to them, you're not making me a Christian. Don't bother trying. You want to bother? Gesundheit. You want to bother?
You almost owe it to them. Yeah. To respect for their time.
Yeah, no, you want to bother? I'm happy to talk to you. I have no problems talking. But be aware, I'm going to be honest with you. As long as we got that predicate right out of the way, we're good.
Right.
You know, I'm happy and they're happy usually. They know I am not here to put down their faith. On the contrary, by the way, according to Jewish law, according to most opinions of Jewish law, a non-Jew, it is not so terrible. It is not considered idolatry for a non-Jew to be a Christian in its purest form, which I believe the fundamentalist Christian faith is really that kind of a according to Jewish halacha, a non-idolatrous, an okay.
Catholicism is a little more problematic.
Catholicism could be a problem.
Yeah.
Even there, I would have to, see exactly. If not Catholicism, there are other kinds of more orthodox, Greek, Russian, which there you really could have, because they're very into icons and into, worship of things almost like, and that could be problematic.
Islam, by the way, for the record, we have issues with it, but idolatry is not one whatsoever.
It's not good. A Jew can't become a Muslim either,
right?
For various
but
reasons.
He can pray in a mosque.
There's a question about that, whether he can actually pray or just be in a mosque. I don't know if he can pray in a mosque, but it's questionable. But it is a more even pure faith in God, in its in its faith in God, that it only has one God. There is no Trinity. There is no
clearly no intermediary.
No intermediary.
Most they call Muhammad the prophet.
Prophet, yes. Now, do they make him more in certain ways more than just a prophet? It's also it could be problematic. Right. But what is their problem and why we have no home, at least for the last couple hundred years in the Muslim faith, is because. For a very simple reason. There are many things you can say in the Islamic faith that have some similarities to the Jewish law. There is a problem, however. What they did was they missed one very important point in Judaism. They missed the spirit of the law. They took only certain aspects of the technicality. When you lose the neshama, the soul, the spirit of the law, all of a sudden, what you took becomes the complete opposite of what Jewish law is all about. I'll give you one very simple example. In times when our Sanhedrin existed, we had a Sanhedrin, we had a Supreme Court, we had Jewish governments, mainly in the time of the First Temple, when Jewish kings governed and we had the right for corporal punishment, whether non-death punishments or even capital punishments that existed. Listen to what the Talmud tells us. The Talmud says a court system in the Jewish land, in the Jewish law, that meted out a death punishment once in 70 years was called a bloody court. That's its rating. Its rating was downgraded to bloody court, and it became known throughout the land of Israel. This was something which was a serious thing. What does that mean? Number one, quite frankly, in the history of the Jewish people, it's rare to even see or know about a death punishment that was meted out. What is the reason for that? Why was it so rare? And moreover, according to Jewish law, to mete out a capital punishment is much more difficult than it is in American law. Americans think they're so merciful. Mm-hmm. In American law, you have such a thing as non-circumstantial.
Someone's at your door, I think.
Yeah, I know. It's all right. Non-circumstantial.
Want me to get the door while
you want to?
Yeah, you keep talking.
What's it called? Not circumstantial evidence, right? So some in American law you have circumstantial evidence, and that's sometimes used for to mete out a guilty verdict. In Jewish law, a circumstantial proof, evidence, would not be accepted, and even that which was direct evidence was so carefully investigated and so carefully looked through that it was rare to ever put somebody to death. It all started from the spirit of the law. What was the spirit of the law? The spirit of the law is that to put somebody to death is the most difficult thing for a Jewish court to do, because it's your brother, it's your sister. And that's why, by the way, unlike in America or any other land that I know of, where a judge can sit in judgment and a jury can sit in judgment and say somebody should go to death, they're not there. They don't have to be there. In Jewish law, they have to be there. You want to put somebody to death? You witness that.
I never even thought about that.
Be careful before you put somebody to death.
Right.
And there's so many other laws that evaded and avoided the easiness of putting somebody to death. People think, oh, the Torah is so bloody. No, it's not. On the contrary. Now, why? Where does it all start from? Mm-hmm. The Torah, the Talmud tells us very, very carefully. A Jewish court, to avoid having to put somebody to death, has to be the same court that its rabbis and sages cannot sit comfortably in a courtroom. But they have to be out there in their cities and in their towns and in their counties, teaching the children of Israel the Torah, teaching them the spirit of the law, teaching children, educating children from childhood, morality, ethics, so that it should never come to having to put somebody to death.
Speaking of which, I believe Donald Trump's grandchildren via Ivanka will be learning this kind of way. But I don't want to falsely advertise in case people tuned in just for Trump. That was a contrast between, I don't think you even need to go into the way Islam is with corporal punishment.
Contrast is, that's what I'm trying to tell you. While they've taken certain technical examples from Torah and used it, because Muhammad basically took it from me, and everything starts in Judaism, what they've done is they've degraded it to technicality. When you make it technical and you lose the spirit, it becomes the most cruel thing in the world. And that's cruelty. And you can take a look at a lot of these pictures and videos. Never can you tell me a Jewish community that behaves that way. No. Never did that ever happen in Judaism. Because it's not just about the technicality. Equally as important and partnered with the technicality is the spirituality of the law. And without it, you have no law. And that's a fundamental difference between Islam and Judaism.
By the way, for those of you watching who are like, where's my Trump stuff? We're having a very Talmudic type discussion. If you ever look at the Talmud, you just go off on tangents all the time. Hey, you got two Jews, one who's very learned, one who's at least enjoying listening. And these things happen. You know, you put Jews together, you just aren't necessarily so great at sticking to the original topic. But that said, say for some reason President Trump is watching right now and he says, you know, this guy's wise. Talking about you, not me. Let's see what advice he has.
That's going to happen.
Like, what advice does he have for me? I'm going to have some tough times the next... My Trump voice needs work, by the way. I'm going to have some tough times the next few weeks. Right. Give me some advice, Rabbi.
The honest truth is, I wonder, Taka, how he does it. You know.
Oh, I do too. I think we all do.
The guy is taking out. You know, I don't know if you ever heard Stephen Harper, former Prime Minister, kind of
good friend of Israel.
He was one of the great heroes to me. Righteous Gentiles, truly. And he did things almost similar to Trump in certain ways on behalf of Israel that nobody, not even in America, Obama never did. Not even came close. And he
definitely a personality difference.
Oh, yes. He was a leader. And he once spoke, I think it was in a Chabad synagogue in Canada, about the fact that he can tell people about the arrows that have been thrown, that have been shot his way in his back for his stand on Israel and his stand about the relationship that he has with Israel and the Jewish people. So, yes, so the question is, how does Trump take it? Good question. I don't know. And worse than that is, nobody called Stephen Harper an anti-Semite. You have Nebuch people who don't think too much, and they just go along to go along, and they follow the herd. They start accusing him of things which is shocking to me. Shocking to me. Just on the very basic logic of it, it's shocking. A man who has a son-in-law who is an Orthodox Jew. His daughter converted Orthodox. His other two sons married Jewish women. They're not living Jewish lives. I feel sorry that they're intermarried, but they are Jewish. Their kids are going to be Jewish according to Jewish law.
Ivanka had to go to a little more effort.
Ivanka wanted to be a common Jew.
Right. It's matrilineal.
Tell me, just in the face of it, does that make any sense to call him anti-Semite? And yet people just run along with that. And recently I put out something which I forwarded on Facebook, and I've seen other people have done also. And incredible, I just recently today, before you came, saw, and maybe I'll try to see if I can find it again, an in-depth article of a rabbi who has revealed, because there was a paper with a grainy picture going around about Fred Trump, the father of Donald Trump, and an incredible act of kindness that he did to a shul, building that shul, and becoming its benefactor. But there was no...
This is out in Coney Island area, I guess?
This was, where he owned many apartment buildings.
And look for Jewish tenants in particular.
Maybe, I don't know, but most of those Jews, as I find out now, were not even religious. They were not shul goers. But there was a religious rabbi who came from Poland. He was connected with the Belzer Hasidim. He came to America, he lived there, and he became, quote-unquote, Fred Trump's rabbi. Because of him, they built him a big shul. They had hundreds of people who were still not religious, but came to shul nevertheless. And he was always involved with that shul.
No kidding.
That's a son who had the son of this rabbi, who was also a rabbi, knew Donald Trump when he was a kid. And Itaka says he was a wild kid, but he was a brilliant kid, full of energy, and would always have to work. His father didn't give his kids an inch.
Right.
This is an anti-Semite? Are you kidding me? Let me ask you something. All of his years that he did business in New York, I don't think I've ever heard anybody accuse him of being an anti-Semite. His most closest lawyers are Jews. Oh, because maybe the lawyers are Jews, that's why he knows they're smarter.
Some of the best lawyers are Jewish.
Exactly. Come on, please. He appoints one of his closest friends, lawyer Friedman, who's a right-wing hawk, to be the ambassador of Israel. That's an anti-Semite. So where does this come from? Where does this come from? They hear a little thing here, a little thing, and they already automatically assume things. That's, to me... Because
some people who are among the thousands at the rallies maybe didn't like Jews so much, so therefore Trump's an anti-Semite.
But to me, and this is again the aspect of existentiality of this, not the political aspect of it. To me, for a Jew, and for Jews to come out and rabidly, and it's become a rabid situation. It's not just, disagreements. Let me tell you something. I'm not a Obama fan. And as a conservative, I'm definitely not an Obama fan. And I had issues with him mainly about Israel and things. So that's, did you see the rabid behavior and words? And you never saw any of that. Where does this come from? What kind of behavior is this? And for Jews to latch onto this? Do Jews realize that they're shooting themselves in their own foot? In their own feet? Even if they disagree with him. You can't talk like a mensch. You can't behave with derech eretz, with respect. I don't care if you disagree with him. What do you want? Are we looking to make an enemy out of the president? Is that what we're looking for? I mean, seriously.
Well, I get the impression that Trump is familiar enough with Judaism, though I was a little disappointed that they, on that Saturday, the day after he got inaugurated, that they found a Reformed Jewish rabbi to be part of it. I would think he would know enough about Judaism to say we don't have a Jew at a Saturday event during the day. It's Shabbos, even if you find one willing to do it. But that's another story. That disappointed me a little bit. But I get the impression Trump knows that observant Judaism is the future of Judaism.
Yes,
he's very aware, and he doesn't even take it seriously.
He lives in New York. He knows this.
Yeah.
He's not coming from the backwater somewhere in the Tennessee mountains, or he wasn't a hillbilly somewhere. Whatever. Nothing against hillbillies, but he knows Jews. He's lived around Jews all of his life.
But he knows what the trends in the Jewish community are, that the
I don't
conservative
even know,
synagogues are dying.
I honestly don't believe that's his. I don't think that's his principle. His principle is, I think he found a home and he believes, and he's more friendlier with people who are more religious. That's
right.
I just believe he's found a greater affinity with Jews who are religious. I think he likes them. I know he's done business with them.
Right.
He's had lawyers who are all mainly. Friedman is an Orthodox Jew.
Yeah.
I mean, that he just seems to.
You didn't see any of that with Obama. Maybe Jack Lew,
Obama?
but Jack Lew,
yeah, he was his only, how do you call it? And he was, whatever. Jack was a fine Jew. He was an Orthodox Jew as far as I know. So Baruch Hashem, he had one fine Orthodox Jew or a Jew. Mm-hmm. How many Muslim friends did he have? Enemies of Israel friends did he have? You know, that. What about what's his name from his pastor from his church who was a rabid Jew?
Reverend Wright.
Reverend Wright. What about his?
Well, at least he hated all white people, not just Jews.
And trust me, on the white people,
yeah.
Jews, I'm sure, were at the top.
You know, the top or the bottom?
Let me tell you, if you live around Farrakhan, which Wright did,
right.
and was a friend of Farrakhan, you can't be such a great Jew lover. It's just not going to happen. And there are other ways you know that Obama had friends with people who didn't like Jews. So, you know what? I don't want to even get into that. That's not what I'm here to discuss. Uh-huh. But the bottom line is to say things, to libel a president who can become your greatest ally, mm-hmm. to just be a mensch. You want to disagree with him with certain politics, with certain philosophies, and so on and so forth. Okay. Number one, that's one thing. It's fine. You can disagree. Mm-hmm. But number two, you can do it in a respectful fashion. And the problem is, and this is what really irks me and bothers me, the only reason, this is the real reason why I comment about it on Facebook, I feel it a personal responsibility to make sure that anybody who somehow, by divine providence, sees my words and can relay it to Donald Trump or his administration, by accident, right, should know that there are Jews out there rooting for him, that we believe in what he's doing, and we are here to defend him as well. That he shouldn't think, chas v'shalom, that Jews, because maybe the majority are liberal or involved in the Democrat Party, that we're all against him. No. I want him to know that we're not. And I want him to know that he has supporters.
You know what? I do want to bring up one other thing, not entirely unrelated. The Senate minority leader,
Chuck Schumer,
is now Jewish.
Not now. He always was.
Well, I mean, he was always Jewish. Okay, we have a Jew as Senate majority leader now with Reed's retirement. And so we've gone from Mormon to Jew in that department. And Schumer is very visible as a Jew because, I hate to say it, he really embodies some of the negative stereotypes.
Correct.
Yes, he looks it. I'm not talking about his nose, but his know-it-all. I mean, he looks Jewish.
I am sometimes very ashamed of him. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The way he talks down to people, looks down his nose. He's a brilliant guy, by the way.
He is. No
and he's a very pugnacious guy.
Yeah.
Very New York. He is the opposite side of the coin of Donald Trump, which is why they know each other for years. Mm-hmm. They both come from New York, and they're literally two peas in a pod, mm-hmm. but with two different philosophies. But they have the same sort of behavior. Mm-hmm. And the problem, however, is, Schumer has a right to believe in his philosophies. He has a right to be a Democrat. That's fine. But to be pugnacious, to be in your face, to have no respect, and to just say things to libel Donald Trump when he knows better. To me, that's my problem. That's what I do not like and I am ashamed of. Because it makes Jews look bad as far as I'm concerned. And that's not what Jews are. And as a matter of fact, the Talmud makes clear that there are 3 innate characteristics in a Jew. So much so that if a Jew is lacking in one of these 3 characteristics, it calls into question his Jewish pedigree. And what is that? A Jew by nature is a modest individual, humble, merciful, compassionate, and does acts of kindness. If one of these things, not even all 3, if one of them is lacking, it calls into question his physical DNA, his pedigree as a Jew. There's even a story about it in the Talmud about how a certain Jew walked in front of Rabbi Akiva, one of the great sages of the Mishnah. And he was walking without a head covering. In those days, not all Jews wore head coverings constantly on a regular basis. Not all Jews do now either.
Right.
But the yarmulke, as a general rule, always came into effect later after the...
Not one of the 613 commandments.
No, it's a custom. The idea is it's there to remind us that we are under God's guidance, under God's providence. In the times of the Talmud, the main wearers of a yarmulke were the sages, the men of the Mishnah, the Talmud, who were the leaders, the rabbis. But the general rule was when a Jew walked in front of a rabbi, in front of a sage of the time of the Talmud, their hair was covered. Their head was covered. Why? It was a sign of respect, of humility. Walking around with a naked head is a sign of chutzpah, of lack of humility. And this Jew walked by and did not bother covering his head in front of the great Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva then said, I guarantee you, you'll see he doesn't come from a Jewish heritage. And they did, and they found out correctly, they found out that he was correct. They asked him, how do you know? Because a Jew is a modest person. He lacked modesty. He was a bit immodest. That calls him to question his pedigree.
Interesting.
And this behavior that Chuck Schumer has, to me, is very emblematic of that. You know, he may be good for New York and New York Jews.
Certainly good for Wall Street.
Certainly good for New York Jews, too.
Right.
And I'm sure he gets them a lot of, stuff that they need, which is what a senator should do. But
Well, not theoretically they shouldn't. That's not what they're there for.
let's take it just as simple. You're right, but let's take it, okay, he's doing his job, right? That's why he keeps on getting elected. But does that mean, therefore, you have to be in your face and in a
So much of
pugnacious
it
way?
is just the way he talks.
That's
he
the way-
talks
yeah.
in such a condescending way.
Very much.
I mean, it reminds me, Anthony Weiner, there clearly is a problem with him.
Don't
get me
started.
no, I'm saying people can watch the video of him
I
in the
remember him
kosher
as a
bakery.
congressman. I remember him as a congressman.
Yeah, did you ever see the video of him in the kosher bakery
No.
with religious Jews? How obnoxious he was
No.
and pugnacious. That's one for you to see. Anthony Weiner, kosher bakery, who was Chuck Schumer's protege. He was a meteorology
He
major in
took
college.
Chuck Schumer's seat.
Schumer is the one who advanced him.
Yes.
And so Schumer's not quite that obnoxious, but he talks in such a condescending way that you just think, like, this is probably what a lot of people who hate
Think
Jews,
that
who
Jews-
didn't
yeah,
meet them,
100%.
like, I could just only imagine how many Jews 80 years ago, or maybe, I guess it would be 75 years ago in Europe, had a vision when they were justifying what they did of someone like Chuck Schumer.
Never. He personifies the what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for?
Sneering.
No, he personifies the caricature of what people think a Jew is.
Yeah, I mean,
The
besides the
liberal
looks.
New York
Loudmouth.
Loudmouth, yeah, and in your face, and why can't you be a mensch? You can have your ideas, you can hold your philosophies, okay, but do it respectfully. Be a mensch. Stop being in your face. You have to be Harry Reid.
Well, Harry Reid wasn't that. He didn't speak. He's an
Harry Reid
awful
spoke
person,
up.
but he
Harry Reid spoke
softly.
quietly.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But that's what we're talking about
But
here.
even his softness was, he was no less verbally less abusive than Chuck Schumer.
He didn't look like a caricature.
But he
I
did
think
look
we
like
can
a
agree
caricature.
with that.
That's correct.
He seemed polite if you
Always
just listened to him.
Yeah, exactly. That was his brilliance, actually, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But and Chuck Schumer.
Tom Daschle really was polite.
Oh.
Remember him?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
sure,
he was bad,
sure,
but he was
sure.
like almost effeminate. How unpugnacious he was.
Yeah, sure. What's his name? Also the Senate Majority Leader before Tom Daschle.
Who was that?
He was actually from
Bob
Libya.
Michael?
No, the
From what
Democratic.
state?
The Democrat. He was from
Gephardt?
Nope.
No, Gephardt was
Senate.
a congressman.
Senate.
Yeah.
He was from. He's a famous negotiator. They always used him to.
Oh,
negotiate.
Mitchell was
Mitchell.
smooth. He was smooth.
Oh.
Arab, kind of not a big friend of the Jews.
No,
Part
he
Arab.
was not.
But
No,
he was very
He
buttoned
could have
up
been. I'm
lawyer.
not sure if he was Arab or Christian.
I think no. You can be
Lebanese.
Arab and Christian.
No,
He
I'm
was
saying-
Lebanese Christian. I
Lebanese
believe, was his
Christian.
background. I may have the
I won't call him an Arab, but he was Lebanese
Well,
Christian.
Arab?
But he
Wait. There were Christian Arabs before there were Muslim Arabs. Of course, you can call them that.
They weren't Arabs necessarily. They were
Arabs
I
of
don't know if
ethnicity. Of course they
They
were.
were cold Arabs then.
Yeah, Arab Christians. Come on, you don't want to offend. There are plenty of Arab Christians.
I thought they were
out there.
called Lebanese Christians or whatever. I don't
Lebanese
know.
Christians, but there were certainly Arab
yeah,
Christians,
all
Iraqis, all that.
I'm sorry, I don't mean
Yeah.
to offend anybody. I got my nomenclature wrong.
All right, let's move on. Let's just say, okay, so we talked about what would Trump say to you if Charles Schumer said to you, he said, Rabbi, How am I doing? Give me some advice. Honestly, I'm on an elevator with you. Give me some advice.
What I wanted to say for your first question about Trump, let me just finish that. That I want to say like this. I want Trump to know, if somehow this gets to him, that simple Jews like me, salt of the earth, blue-collar rabbis, as it were, we got your back. And I want him to know, and this is the most important thing, is it's not that we got his back, it's because the Torah, God, I believe, has his back as long as he continues to behave in a righteous manner. As long as he's cognizant of godliness and God's providence upon this country. The very words of our coinage, in God we trust, and our founding fathers represented that. And if he continues in that way, no matter how strong he is, no matter how tough he is, but he does it because he truly believes that this country was blessed by God, I am sure that will be his saving grace and will one day make him historically a great president. It did. I believe that's who Ronald Reagan was. A man of abiding faith.
His birthday's tomorrow.
Oh, is it? Oh, look at that. I didn't even know. A man of Tomorrow's Ronald Reagan.
I don't know about on the Jewish. No, on the secular calendar.
But tomorrow's the 10th of Shvat, which is the yard sign of the previous Levant.
This year it is. I mean, not every year. Wow. February 6th, yes.
Wow, look at that. Look at that.
Are you doing anything for Yud Shvat?
Yeah, we're going to have it for bringing my son's house, but not Monday, Tuesday night.
Oh, you're doing it Tuesday night?
Yeah.
Tonight's the night, though,
I know.
Right? But
tonight,
the Super Bowl,
yeah. No, not because I'm just for bringing somewhere else. They asked me to for bring somewhere, and that's when they're making it.
So wait, here in Hollywood?
No, it's in West Aventura, sort of.
Which
West
Chabad is that?
It's a small little Chabad it's not official Chabad really, but it's a Chabad rabbi there, and my son happens to live there, so he's making it for bringing in his house. So
how old's your son?
My oldest son is at this current moment 31 years old.
Wait, how old are you?
How old did you think I was?
I thought you were in your mid to late 40s.
Well, thank you very much.
No,
what a man. Nice.
Really?
No, I'm way over in my 40s. I'm 55.
No kidding.
56, I'm sorry.
All right.
Just recently became 56.
All right.
I'm already old. What can I tell
you? I actually genuinely thought you were younger.
I appreciate that. Imagine if I would lose a little weight, how much younger I would look then.
No, not in your face. Because
no,
I deal with this.
Wrinkles.
Because I have young,
I know.
I'm young looking, but I'm on a diet, so I'm going to get older looking. Really good. But that's absolutely true.
It's true. Yeah, I know. But so that's what I believe. That's the only message I have for Donald.
Not that I'm saying you're fat, by the way. I just want to make that clear for the audience. Okay.
That's the only message I have for him. It's not a political message.
Right.
Really, honestly believe that you're in God and do what He would know, what you know for sure is the right thing. And you know how you know that? Listen to advice from those who represent godliness. And if you listen to their advice and you stay strong, you'll be successful. My message to, I think, Chuck Schumer is you can be a Democrat, you can be a liberal. I have nothing to say about that. I have no desire to pick a fight with you about that. You ever want to talk about our political philosophies? Mr. Schumer, Senator Schumer, I'm happy to meet with you privately and talk about them. And we could, I'm a human being, I'm a citizen, I have my ideas, but that's not my point. All I beg and ask you is one thing. Be a proud Jew. Don't let anybody run you over. Because the problem is today, in the Democratic Party, which pains me very much, is that you have individuals who are taking it over, who have made it into a not Jew-friendly...
Keith Ellison.
And that's just one example.
Barack Obama.
Imagine a guy who's going to be the head of your party. Forget about the fact that he's Muslim, that's fine. But the fact that you know his history, you can't hide that. And it's not going to go away. No matter what he says. In the political world, maybe you're willing to accept that. In the real world, no one is willing to accept it. It doesn't happen in business. It doesn't happen in relationships. When you know who somebody is, it just doesn't disappear. Because you want it to disappear. And there's nothing in his congressional history that says he's become a friend of the Jews or Israel. May have become a little more political, a little more quiet, or not so in your face about it. Mm-hmm. But what have you seen?
Hey, Chuck Schumer sticks up for him.
And that's the problem. That's what I'm saying to Chuck Schumer. It's about time to become a proud Jew. Don't tell me you vote for Israel, you this and that. Even his opposition to Obama's Iran deal was also not a full-throated, in-your-face.
It was at the last
opposition.
minute.
It was
like,
at the
when
last
they already had the
minute.
votes.
When they, exactly. People forget about that.
So we could get covered. I didn't forget about it.
I don't forget about that.
Which is
Now,
even worse. Yeah.
now you're suddenly becoming against the Iran deal. Where were you from the very beginning? Was silent. Why wasn't he defending Bibi Netanyahu? You know what? I'm sorry. You can be a Democrat and a liberal, but you have to be a proud Jew. Keith Ellison is a proud Muslim. Learn from him. And be a proud Jew.
A lot of Jews can learn a lot from Muslims.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can learn from Christians and we can learn from Muslims. Stop bowing down to the world. Stop hiding yourself. Stand up. And you know, by the way, we're coming soon to the holiday of Purim. That's the whole lesson about Purim. Who was Mordechai? Mordechai was lo yichra v'lo yishtachava. He didn't genuflect and he did not bow.
We still have over a month, by the way, those keeping
Right.
score at home.
But that's what the whole story of Purim was. That was their saving grace. They followed this leader who would not bow, even though, according to Jewish law, he was allowed to bow to Haman. Because Haman was the grand vizier, the prime minister, the second in command. You have an obligation to give respect to the head of government. But he wouldn't do it to Haman, because he knew Haman was an anti-Semite. He knew Haman wanted to kill the Jewish people. And you know what? If that's who you are, I will not bow to you. But, said many of the establishment Jews of
Who were
that
just
day,
partying with the
partying,
omelets of the
they
temple.
were there at the royal banquet,
Yeah.
and they ate kosher, by the way. They had kosher catering for them.
Really?
Yeah, the Talmud tells us they had kosher catering.
They just had the utensils from the Holy
They
Temple.
had the utensils from the Holy Temple in their face.
So it's even more insulting.
And the insult was there, and yet the Jews stayed there, and they ate, and they...
Look, they have kosher
were
food.
friends.
By the way, Trump had great kosher food spreads. I went to something of his in Philadelphia like 10, 12 years ago. I was blown away by how good a kosher layout. Not that I'm implying that he had objects from the Holy Temple there,
Right.
but I was like, wow. But it really did make an impression. I mean, obviously a lot of his co-investors were observant Jews, so that may have been part of it. But
The anti-Semite Trump. But the bottom line is...
well, not now, but Ahasuerus did have all the kosher food out there too.
So Achashverosh had the kosher food. But Achashverosh at the same time insulted the Jews, treated them like second-class citizens. And the Jews took it. And they sat there friendly, nice, That angered God. That the Jewish people lacked Jewish pride. And that's what the antidote was. You had a man like Mordechai who could have bowed, but didn't. You know why? Because a Jew doesn't bow to anyone. We have no obligation or even right to do so. And when Jews learn to stop being subservient, that's when we will truly be redeemed. We have to stop being subservient. We have to start showing our, what's called in Hebrew, the Gaon Yaakov, the pride of Jacob. And stop trying to follow others, stop trying to be like others. But perhaps people should start learning from us, and that's who we really are. What is our job? Our job is to be a light unto the nations. Not to accept the light of nations. What's our job? That's the whole reason why we're quote-unquote the chosen nation. What is the chosenness all about? It's about being ministers to the world. To teach the world. To let them learn by example from who we are. But we have to be examples. We have to be proud. We have to show who we are. We have to not be afraid of who we are.
So essentially you're saying that Chuck Schumer needs to have a little less arrogance and a lot more pride. A lot less arrogance.
A lot more humility, but a humility that brings out pride. They're not in opposition to each other. You can be humble because you're willing to listen. You're willing to talk to others. You're willing to be friends with others. But you're never willing to sell yourself down the road, down the river as a Jew. You're a Jew. Everybody knows you're a Jew. And there are certain things you're not going to bow down on.
Got it. Let me point out, by the way, on Mondays here in Hollywood at Mizrahi's Pizza, you do a class
Lunch
at
and
noon.
Learn.
Lunch and Learn at noon. While I check the comments, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, that's a Lunch and Learn. Okay, here we go.
Free pizza. Free pizza.
Free pizza? Oh, I paid for my eggplant rollatino. I said, well, I didn't need to be there. Okay, Suzanne Graham-Pear, who's a very close friend, a Christian and a good friend of Jews from where I'm from in Pennsylvania. She has a question.
Sure.
Can you two suggest any books or authors to help one comprehend Judaism, the history of which you two are speaking, teaching? I am going to mention one. This is My God by Herman Wouk, which I probably talked to you about him. We've probably discussed some of his other books, Suzanne, because we're good friends. And Herman Wouk, he was coming up on his 102nd birthday, a member of the Chabad community in Palm Springs. And I finished all his books last year.
He actually visited the Rabbi quite a few times.
Oh, yeah. He's not leaving his house too much now, but I'll let you answer the questions.
I'll tell you, for a beginner, somebody who just wants to have a basic understanding, perhaps.
Suzanne may be beyond that by now.
Okay, well, I'll tell you just to begin with, I don't agree with everything, but most of what he writes, I would say, is very rational, very intellectual, and very easy to understand, and that would be Dennis Prager.
Oh.
Dennis Prager is an unbelievable guy. I don't get to listen to him because he's not really on here, I don't think. I wish he was, but he's not.
You can get the podcast.
Yeah, the truth is, you're right, I could. I just don't, I'm not very good on those kind of things. But in any event, I could try harder, but he's very knowledgeable. Again, he's not always right. He's not a rabbi, so he will make mistakes, and there are certain things that I don't always agree with. But on the whole, he's a proud Jew. He doesn't hide it. And he's obviously politically conservative, but he's also very definitive and very explanatory in the Jewish. He has a book, I can't remember now the name, but if you look up his books, you'll see books related to Judaism on his from him. There's also, for example, another book which I've used in the past to, and sometimes even now I'm involved with. Sometimes people want to convert to Judaism. It's a long process, and so I am a teacher in that as well. And I used this book, which is a very good book as well, To Be a Jew, from Chaim Halevi Donin. Donin. Chaim, I think it's Hayyim. Halevi, Halevi, I think. Donin, Donin. You can Google it and see how to get it, To Be a Jew. It's a pretty nice, it's not so much, there is the philosophy there as well, but it literally goes through all the basic laws or basic aspects in the life of a Jew of the year round, the holidays, the basic laws like tefillin and mezuzah and all this kind of stuff. So it's a very good book to read. It's very easy to understand. So that would be another book. And then, of course, very good book to always read if you're into the Bible. Art Scroll is very good.
Oh, the actual
Art
Torah,
Scroll Torah book.
Chumash,
you also have today in the Kehos or Kehot, Kehot or Kehos. I think it's spelled both ways. You can find it online, Kehot or Kehos.org, I think, or something like that. And you can find also their Chumash that they have given out. Beautiful Chumash, a beautiful 5 books of Moses, very nicely explained, basic, again, also very good to read as well. So those are just 2 examples that you can...
And This Is My God by Herman Wouk is a good one.
My God.
And The Will to Live On, which is a follow-up to that after you read This Is My God. Any final thoughts today? Including maybe the Parsha.
Well,
Beshalach.
I'll just tell you one short word, that we're about to, which actually fits in with what we were talking about. The Jews are, left Israel. I mean, Egypt, sorry. And they're stuck over there at the Sea of Reeds, as it's really called, not the Red Sea. The Sea of Reeds, and all of a sudden they see their enemy behind them again. And they don't know what to do. So, again, the Talmud always reads and tells us what's in between the lines there. They're not always so clearly explained, written. And the Talmud tells us a very interesting thing that happened at that time. As the Jews were on the cusp, on the threshold of being totally freed from the Egyptians, who, although were completely, conquered with the 10 plagues and everything, yet still found the ability to run after the Jews and try to get them to come back. You see the interesting dynamic that goes on with the Jewish people. The Talmud tells us there were 4 types of Jewish people then. There were those who immediately said, and you find those words in the Chumash over there, who said, Nitna Reish v'nashuv el Mitzrayim. Let's turn head, let's do an about face and go back to Egypt. Why? It's the old Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to leave your slavery. 210 years in Egypt, and they had to leave in a rush. That's why God took them out in a rush, because a little longer they would not have wanted to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Comes their overseers, their taskmasters are back again. All of a sudden, you lose your guts, you lose your courage, and let's go back. The socialist system in Egypt was okay. We'll live with it. They fed us. They took care of us. Yeah, we had to work hard, but okay. Listen, what do we want to run away for? Where are we going? Into a desert filled with scorpions and snakes and this and that. Okay. The other class of Jews said, well, why should we go back? Let's turn and fight. Let's turn and fight. Let's show who we are. Another class said, we're not fighters. We're lovers. We're not fighters. But let's pray to God. What does a Jew always do when he needs salvation? You pray to God, and hopefully he'll save you. And then there was the very small minority led by the great Nachshon ben Aminadav, who became the prince of the tribe of Judah, who said, what are you talking about? What did God tell us? God tells us he took us out of Egypt to come to the mountain, to receive the Torah, to become his nation. God didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't know there was a sea of reeds. He didn't know the nature of the Egyptians. So therefore what? We should go back or fight or even pray. Pray? We have time for prayer? Let's get moving. Let's get going. And what did Nachshon ben Aminadav do? He led by example. He went into the sea of reeds and started walking. The water came to his nose, and he still kept on walking, and he was ready to give up his life and drown. Why? He's a soldier. God says, go. You go. What happened? That's when God said to Moshe, split the sea. Mm-hmm. And this is, what did God say to Moshe when he said to split the sea? God said to Moshe, you go. Don't pray, don't do anything. Just go, ve'atem tacharishon. Be quiet. Just do what I'm telling you to do. There is not even any time for prayer right now. Just do. I already told you what to do. What are you questioning? What are you praying? What are you crying? What do you want? What did I tell you to do? Mm-hmm. My command didn't change. God doesn't change. I told you to go. Look at Nachshon. He's going even though he doesn't seem to wait. There doesn't seem to be anywhere to go, but he's going. Learn from him. Go. And that's the lesson to the Jewish people. There's time for prayer. There's time for song. As King Solomon says, there's time for this, there's time for that, there's time for everything. But there is a time that when God says something, don't doubt God. Do what he says. Ultimately, whether you see it or not, or realize it or not, it's going to turn up okay because that's what God said. It's not up to you to decide or to divine or to understand. Sometimes you can't understand. We're finite. God is infinite. How can you understand? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can see the clear rewards. But that should never be the reason why we do what we do. We do what we do because God wanted us to meet at the mountain. Go. If you go, you're in God's hands. Don't worry about it. And that's the basic lesson. I believe that's a lesson we can learn, we Jews can learn today as well. Let's do what God wants us to do. And ultimately, if we do what God wants us to do, if our president does what God wants us to do, and our president is appointed by God because God runs this world. If God wanted him to win, he wins. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's a Jewish law that when you see a king or even a president, because he's a head of state, he's the ceremonial head of state, there's an obligation for a Jew to actually say a benediction when we see a king face to face, a president face to face. You know what the blessing is?
I don't.
The Talmud says the blessing is you make, blessed are you God, master of the universe, who gave of himself, of his own self, his glory upon a king of flesh and blood. That's an obligation a Jew has to make that blessing. Mm-hmm. Which means that a king, doesn't matter who that king is, sometimes it's not a good king, But for whatever reason, God chose him to be the king.
Mm-hmm.
He's a reflection, a representative of the godly kingdom on this earth. And therefore, there has to be a certain respect given. And that respect is the respect we give to God, really. And hopefully, the only difference is that here, God is always, and he's the same, it doesn't change. A king of flesh and blood can, he's just flesh and blood. Question is, will he become a true personification of God's reflection? That's up to him, and hopefully he will choose to be that kind of president.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you for having me.